IVM.
So Amar Chitrakatha came in collaboration with Rana, and there was this 12 crore investment that Rana had. So they needed an idea for that. So that is where, among the other people, I think they also interviewed me, and they invited me to make this whole thing work, like storytelling and the 12 crore. I said, really? Like, there's so much more scope to do. Why just storytelling in this? That's why I mentioned the figure. It's not really for everybody, but that's important. So I said, listen, and then they showed me the building as well. I said, listen, storytelling, just the storytelling, don't be, confined by it. And then you have this huge building with 10 odd rooms, and we can make a beautiful space here. And then we started discussing more. It was a 9-month project. Like, it took 9 months for me to arrive at that point of let's do the 64 arts. Let's revive the 64 arts of the Vedic tradition and actually let's adapt it to our modern world.
Hello and welcome to the Filter Koffee Podcast. As a kid, I grew up with mythology all around me. It was in the books I read, the stories I heard from family, and in the stuff I watched on TV. And it was fun. While I read mythologies from all around the world, I was quite rooted in the tales from India, and South India especially, because I had access. My guest today, Surya Swapna, feels strongly that children of today probably are disconnected from their stories, especially those who are far from home or non-resident Indians. She wants to bridge this gap through her organization, Kathavani. Surya is an amazing storyteller, and she wants to create a world where mythology is approachable, fun, and very accessible to children. She wants them to grow up knowing them, enjoying them, and having fun with them in a realm that is beyond religion or classrooms. I want to talk to her about her journey and also understand this really beautiful world that she's trying to create. Stay with us. We'll be right back on the Filter Koffee Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Ikka Dukka Economy, Abhinav talks to Dr. Bharat Junjunwala, author and professor of IIM Bangalore, to discuss inflation and its effects on our daily lives. On Storytellers and Storytellers, Vineet sits down to talk to Ankit Chauhan, aka Oye Ankit, the man behind the internet's most viral mashups. On Press Decode, Sarah Vagda and Prafulla discuss the biggest news of the week, the brand new COVID variant Omicron. On The Longest Constitution, Priya takes us through gender inequity at work and how women have changed these regulations. And on Agla Station Adulthood, Ritash and Ayushi talk to Nikhil Taneja. Nikhil is an old friend of the network. He's the founder and CEO of Yuva. Yuva is a socially conscious youth media organization, and in this episode, he discusses toxic masculinity. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And finally, do remember that many of our shows are available on YouTube. You can check that out by going to our website, ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, where we have a list of all of our various YouTube channels. Finally, we'd like to thank the sponsors on the network this week: Cred, Bank of Baroda, HDFC Mutual Fund, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Intel, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome to the Filter Koffee Podcast. Surya, where are you talking to us from?
Thank you. From Hyderabad as of now.
Wonderful. What do you say as of now?
So that's a joke with all my friends. They don't ask me, how are you? They say, where are you? So it's become a part of me. So I am heading to Bali tomorrow night. We are relocating. Yeah. So for now, here.
Wonderful. And Indonesia is home for you, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. We've been there, and I'm looking forward to get back. My kids have got admission in the schools there, so we'll go start off there.
Excellent. I would like to speak with you 10 years from now and ask you, does it ever get boring to live in Bali? But, getting to what we want to talk about today, you grew up, what I understand is that you grew up largely outside your home state, which is Andhra Pradesh, and then you moved outside your country. What does native culture and mythology mean to you?
So how we talk about Indian diaspora trying to get back to their roots right now, I was typically growing up in the same sense of not being in Andhra ever, but belonging to this place. So wherever else we were staying, we had groups and We used to talk in our native language, watch movies from here, and always try to, connect to our roots. So now, of course, now the geographies are broader and people from abroad want to connect back to the roots. So this is a constant pursuit of a human to connect to their roots. So I have come to realize that there's this constant tendency you want to learn from where you belong to. It could be as simple as your family, your great grandfathers, to the stories, your bedtime stories, the lullabies. So I've traced back everything. So I do remember what my mom used to sing at 1 and 2 years old, and those rituals and customs we followed. So there's a sense of fulfillment there. And so coming back, so the nativity, buying to that, we need makes us stronger, values, and you're more natural. It's where you belong to, so it's natural. There's nothing complicated here. It's far too simpler than we think. So we just belong, and but we do embrace everything else. That's the beauty of learning. And
how was growing up for you? Did you grow up with a lot of stories and storytellers around?
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about that.
Right.
What was your early years like?
Yes. So belonging to the conservative South Indian families, that very typically we have we are initiated into music, dance from when we can start to walk and talk, and then of course stories like the epics, and even otherwise the folk stories. So I'm not saying only the mythology part, but there's a lot of these the folk and the tribal stories that we keep hearing, the oral tradition of storytelling. So that has been very prevalent. And yes, of course, God-fearing and sloka chanting, that's pretty much part of our families. And so usually, like when we go to different states, so we have these get-togethers of, even children have these classes of Balvikas, other places. Even now in US, you have these ISKCON and the Chaitanya, the groups where they're taught. So that's just one of the platforms for them to get together. Now, what they get out of it, that's besides the point. But it's a way to bring together people. At least you get to wear your traditional dress, go sit there for some time. But in a way, there's a big picture for all this. I see it all coming together for me. So where I didn't have answers, where I didn't have explanations, I'm trying to give them to the children. And I also realized that I've been reflecting on all those for the past, about 30, 35 years now. So it comes together. It's a journey. So for me, learning is a journey. It has no beginning, no ending. So we're all part of it. And we're just creating spaces. Me within, with myself, and me with you. So every conversation, even without the conversation, right? So it's all learning. Yeah.
That's beautifully put, actually. Of course, you were born and you grew up in Amlapuram, which is a lovely town in Andhra Pradesh.
I was just born there. Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
So I was in Karnataka. Then I stayed in Calcutta for my high school. And I was also in Pune, Mumbai regions. So that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Right. And, you obviously have grown up in different parts of India. So I can understand what you mean when you say, that urge to connect back to your roots is very natural.
Yeah.
But just moving out of that, you have also had your own, your own learning journey, right? I think over a period of time, even though, you are a technologist, you studied computer science, and then I think you worked in that industry for a while. You picked up learnings in storytelling and puppeteering and all of that. Talk to us a little bit about that journey. What did you pick up, and who did you pick it up from, and how did that happen in your life?
Right. So that's just the first part of learning, which is continuous. But the second part is it has no boundaries. So everywhere we go, we try to assimilate. So whenever I was working, and I do many solo travels. So I went to Europe, I went to Canada, Mexico. So while I was working in US, I was working in the not so common places of the US. So I see a lot of these Native Americans and
Are these personal trips or are you traveling on work?
On work and my personal trips, yeah.
Interesting. Tell us a little bit more about that. That's a lot of exotic solo travel.
Yeah. So I had my own bucket list right way back then. So I wanted to be on the top of Eiffel Tower before my 25th birthday, which I did. I went all alone. I planned the whole thing on my own. And those were not this is like 15 years ago, 15, 16 years ago. Not very common for people to travel alone, specifically, I won't say, but yes, women. And so I used to travel. So wherever I go, like I make a whole plan. Somebody joins, they join. Otherwise, I go alone. And I've explored India as well like that. So I've been alone on many trips here to the smallest places.
Sorry, I'm diverging completely,
Okay,
but that's
okay.
what this show is all about. But tell us a little bit of your two most favorite trips in India or outside.
In India, I loved being to Palitana. So in Gujarat, I've been, it was just a random trip to Dwaraka and Diu Beach. And suddenly I saw this place called Palitana and I just stayed there. Very spiritual immersion. I was just bowled by it.
Does the place have a significance in mythology?
Well, not particularly, but it's one of the shrines for Jains. And there are like umpteen number of, like Mount Abu and Rajasthan. So there are many temples. And you just climb the hill and you see infinity number of temples around you. So it's just a sense of wonder and it piques your curiosity. Who must have built these and that sort of thing. And then, of course, the marble temples with those, the lamps and the music. It's very serene. Specifically when I was in the middle of my IT career, like the booming IT career, and such a place obviously is.
Yeah. So what happened? You just took a detour and then went there?
Yes, just landed there and spent a couple of days. And I had to lie. So there was no accommodation because of the Holi is a rush time there. So I went to a place and I bluffed. I belonged to their caste, and so they gave me accommodation. So I had to just.
I'm becoming a huge fan of your travel diaries. Tell us more internationally.
Yes, yeah. So before that, of course, Himalayas is my all-time favorite, and so I'll just tell you one small thing before we go abroad. So we were in a tour, and there was a random pit stop at a place called Shakuntalapuri. I believe that's what the locals call there. That's the place where Dushyanta met Shakuntala for the first time. It's just a very beautiful little, there's not even a village of over four houses and surrounded by all mountains. And Ganga just flows through. They just pitch a tent and you can just stay there. So and
how do you get to this place, Shakuntalapuri?
That's somewhere Badrinath, Kedarnath en route, somewhere there. In your Chardham Yatra, figure it out. It's really difficult to map it, but it's somewhere there.
Lovely. It sounds almost fairy tale-ish.
Yeah, I guess we all get lucky. We just land up at places like that. Okay, so yeah, let's go. Then we move to other places. Bhutan is one favorite all-time. Yeah, it's for everybody. But otherwise, one of the places I would pick, yes, Belgium. So obviously, I was at Brussels and they said you should go to Brugge. And so there's a beautiful place there. And so I did go there. I just took a detour and I went there. And it was lovely. All the best things of the world are there. It's like a mini world. It's a miniature. So what I actually was saying is now Imtiaz Ali and other movie makers, they pick such places and make movies. So it's not as much exotic, but yes. So all my detours have been really good.
And all of them have been like solo trips. I mean, most of them.
Most of them.
That is fascinating. I've done like 3 solo trips and I feel like massive FOMO right now. So great. Yeah, we were talking about, sorry, before I absolutely unapologetically interrupted you. We were talking about how you picked up your skills in storytelling.
All right. Yes. So I guess it's in us, within each of us, to tell a story. right? When you introduce yourself, it's a story, of course. Well, so much has been told about storytelling in general. Now, in this narrative, there's already the story narrative. In this narrative, of course, so when I started interacting with children, at whatever point of my age, the storyteller in me always came out, which I never was so much aware of. So the time when I actually quit my job, that is when I became alive and started having awareness of my skills, and children just loved it, and the adults as well. Like I share my stories of either travel or my personal life. Everybody knows everything. So then I'm able to see that it's quite entertaining. So
Right.
yeah.
So these skills in puppeteering and storytelling, they're all
Yes,
things you acquired along the way.
Yes. So I did learn music and movement, how to do with children, and that's Kinder Music. It's a UK based company. So then there was another storyteller so we were working for the slums in Mumbai. There was another storyteller there alongside, and I loved the way she was emoting, and so I learned from her. Then I moved on, and there's so much to learn from everybody. So back in Hyderabad, there are other people, well-known people as well, and yeah. So every interaction, not so much as formally, but yeah. And I love puppets. It makes children laugh, so it's nice. It's fun. Humor is a big part of whatever I do. So
Really?
and children just connect to that the most. So don't expect my stories to be serious, like completely immersed and very deep. They are deep, but very subtly deep. It's very subtle. You don't even realize, but they're more funny and silly. And so before any kid signs up, I tell their parents, I just don't consider this blasphemy. I just bash up any god I want. I just do whatever anybody can be silly and a stupid guy. So bear with that and just put them. So
bashing up any god I want sounds like a lot of fun.
You want an example? Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Yeah. So there's this instant where there is Shiva. See, of course, without examples, this means nothing to me. So
Yes.
yeah. So of course, there's so we have Shiva, who's his usual sitting and being in his own zone, and Ravan apparently praises him and flatters him, and then Shiva says, "Okay, ask me what you want." He says, "Your wife." Says, "Okay, take her." And so then he heads on to pick Parvati and take her back home. And the Shivagana, the assistants go and warn Parvati, "You know what, your husband Ravana just asked for you." She says, "No, he will never agree to that." Said, "But no, on the contrary, he said, yes, take her." So, that's the thing that invokes laughter in children. So that's so some things like that. How silly can he be that he would give away his wife without even a thought, and so on. Like even otherwise, the characters. So I've developed idiosyncrasies for each character. So suppose it's just Yudhishthir, the eldest of the Pandavas. His favorite thing is like, I'm going back to the forest. I can't handle this. I'll go back to the forest. So the children know it, and then they say, "Oh yes, now he's going to say I'm going back to the forest. Oh, I'm losing. I'm going back to the forest. I'm better off there." So things like that. So I've developed some characterization that if they actually it etches in their minds.
That's beautiful. In fact, I was going to ask you this question much later. But when you tell stories, how do kids react to it?
Yeah. So mythology and wonder, obviously. So, oh wow. And it's very interactive. The stories I do are very different. So it's very interactive. I do not prepare. So there's an unstructured structure there. I do not prepare for any stories. I just sit. I look at the faces and the vibes. Where it's more difficult to get vibes through, this kind of a platform. But
Right.
but I do get. So I understand what their thought is. I pick up from that, and then we start there. So it makes no sense. I'm in my own zone. You're in your own thought process, and we'll never connect. So the connection is.
You said interactive. Give us a sense of how a session normally plays out when you're hosting it.
Right. Yeah. So let's just say we've just begun the class. So it could just be where did you come from, or what was the most recent thing on the mind. So the kid says, the mountain or the rocks, and then I will just pick the thread from there. And oh, did you know in Ramayana there's a particular story of a mountain, a flying mountain? But did you also know that long back mountains used to fly? So there was so much of traffic in the air that Indra apparently decided to clip those wings. This is now probably even popular because of Devdutt Patnaik. So they clipped the wings of most of the mountains. Now, one of them, he didn't really want to lose his wings. So he goes and asks the ocean, who's his friend, please, just save me from this cutting off the wings. So he says, okay. So he hides there, and he's the only, Menak Parvat is the only one who still flies. And then, so he stops Hanuman and he says, why don't you rest on me? And I'm lonely. I want to talk to somebody. So later I'm on an important work. And so that conversation, and then how you can bring in humor and silliness and, all the subtle message that, your task is the foremost priority. There are other, things which will obviously keep distracting you, but you have your goal setting in place. So
I love that. I love that the sessions are extempore. You don't walk in with a set agenda or a set story. You just take it as it comes.
Right.
That's
sometimes
amazing.
No ending as well. So it's just open, and I try to ask them. So the next, and then they fill in up. They fill in all those things. So it's actually cool.
So it's almost seems like what you're striving for is a conscience of these, rather than, and not necessarily here is a story, you read it, like that. Right? I think you're looking at a constant consciousness of our culture.
Yeah, there's a collective unconscious that has been so much scientifically also spoken about. Right. Not just Indian mythology, even everywhere else, you have similar stories. So we also try to do that, the comparative analysis. So somebody like this, and then in that mythology, who's the god of death? Here it's Yama, there it is Hades, and they make associations. And so, as I said, the learning cannot be with boundaries. So unless I let my children think free, so they're not going to thrive. So it goes anywhere. So I call my whole principle as atom to infinity. So the journey is atom to infinity. And some of my classes are called that. So where we just sit, and I would bring in science, I would bring in math, proper concepts of all these. And we go on, like I would touch upon every aspect. So you would be amazed to know how many environmental studies topics are in our stories, right? And very simple, Durga got her name because she killed Durga Masur. Okay. So now, who is this Durga Masur? He and his father were these rowdies and, the typical brutes. And they removed the knowledge of growing plants and the water sources from the world. Now, how would you understand that? Does it make sense, any sense that how could somebody forget how to grow a vegetable or a plant? And how could somebody forget where is the river, where is your well? But then, this is where I contemporize. So then I bring in a movie like Wall-E, where the Disney Pixar Wall-E is a beautiful representation of that. So everybody else is in this other space station, and there's one plant, and then they don't even know what that plant is. Now and they're not drinking water, they're drinking soda all the time. So there are things like that. So there have been agencies or the governmental organizations who are systematically taking away the knowledge. And of course, there's this whole thing of the paradigm shift and how science is what you want the science to be. So anyway, that's at the larger picture. But even children, you're so conditioned. So this is your truth, and this is where you will operate from. Right. And there are movies like The Island, where they're in a facility. Yeah, it's called a facility. These are all clones, and this is their life. They don't know anything outside. So they think that the earth has been contaminated and then just shunned off to us. And so these concepts, and then of course, the ancient wisdom, so mythology. That's why it's ever aging and never old. It never gets old. Yeah. Our stories.
I just absolutely love how you made the transition from Durga to Wall-E so easy. And that's beautiful. And Wall-E, incidentally, is the most favorite movie that me and my 4-year-old daughter like to sit and watch like a million times. So I love it. Here is a question I did not think I'll ask you today, which is, there is mythology, there is story, there is the subconscious that you're talking about, and then there is religion, right? Like,
Right.
are these borders very blurred in your story? How do you sort of keep these two things away, or probably even mix?
So I could just give you an example before I explain the theory part of it. So when I started doing specifically these stories in 2017, not a market for that those days, very rare even today. But when I started doing, I obviously had all kinds of Christians, Muslims, everybody in my class. And I love telling about child prodigies because that's what they relate to. Superheroes, child prodigies, this is what they are, in fact. So they try to link up all their superpowers to those superheroes. So, say I tell the story of Prahlad. So, Prahlad has been instigated into praying Vishnu from his childhood. Okay, I'm using that word deliberately. So, there was that mantra put in his mind from a very young age, Om Namo Narayana. But I don't want this Om Namo Narayana for these other children to be, getting into. I have nothing against it, but there could be a problem from their family. So instead, I just say Om, which is very, very common. Well, and then how I connect this is so Prahlad then goes back, and how did he survive every fall or every threat? That's because Om is he was meditating on nature. So then we explain all the elements of nature and how each element, so he was thrown off a cliff, then how the birds and the bees and just helped him land, and so the air element and then the water element and then so all the elements come together, and then he was not saved by some Vishnu or some fate that there is this father figure. No, it could just be like a reverence for nature. So there I'm also setting in that, have reverence, gratitude. And then nature is abundant. It'll take care of you. So you take care of nature, nature takes care of you. So it's all there. So let's say nature is God. And I'm very clear, there's no Brahma sitting on some cloud and giving you some boons. So rather it's all energy form. So we discuss all the stories, and the underlying thing that everybody knows is God is an energy form. And these are stories which are very relatable. Even somebody asked me, tell me, did Krishna exist? Tell me Rama exists. So the stories are so much fun. I say, I'll tell you, let's, do these. After a point, they just vanish. Those questions vanish.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
I'm not shunning them. It just becomes irrelevant.
That's very beautiful, what you just said. And it makes a lot of sense when you put it that way, right? Like the stories are what matter, right? And what do you feel about them? Yeah.
Yeah, the stories you see Bahubali, you see so much. You don't question about the God part in that. So it'll happen the same way if you actually sit. See, I am not giving some pravachan here. It's not a discourse. So nobody will have a problem. So all kinds of people come. They wouldn't have a problem. It's just for parents to try, of course. They're more closed-minded, and the children are not.
Yeah, you give me an extraordinary segue to my next question. You mentioned Bahubali. So I wanted to ask you, you started the first Amar Chitrakatha live center along with Rana Daggubati.
That's right.
Tell us about that journey. What were you guys trying to achieve? And what is this center? What happens there?
It's now shut, so let me begin on that note. So Amar Chitrakatha came in collaboration with Rana, and there was this 12 crore investment that Rana had. So they needed an idea for that. So that is where, among the other people, I think they also interviewed me, and they invited me to make this whole thing work, like storytelling and the 12 crore. I said, really, there's so much more scope to do. Why just storytelling in this? That's why I mentioned the figure. It's not really for everybody, but that's important. So I said, listen, and then they showed me the building as well. I said, listen, storytelling, just the storytelling, don't be, confined by it. And then you have this huge building with 10 odd rooms, and they can make a beautiful space here. And then we started discussing more. It was a 9-month project. Like, it took 9 months for me to arrive at that point of let's do the 64 arts. Let's revive the 64 arts of the Vedic tradition and actually give them the modernized, let's adapt it to our modern world. So I could just pick a story and we can have our making of those puppets digitally and then creating a whole animation. And you could get to any technology or skill set which is relevant to the modern times and use these stories. So 64 arts are just a framework that I used. And so, yes, we worked on it. We had a beautiful center set up. Each room means something. It has art space and music and dance. And yeah, and even the kind of modules. So I had hired over 50 best of the best from the country just to start with. There are many more. Okay. So just to start with. And we could just pick a Kuchipudi dancer and then we could say, why don't we teach them about the emotions, the human emotions? So develop a whole module of the dance and the emotions, and we could pick up any story and make the thread. So we juxtapose stories and a concept. And of course, the tool is it dance? Is it yoga? It's aerial yoga, it's music, it's whatever, whichever it is. So that's about it.
So it's a physical center. Was it in
It's a
Hyderabad?
physical. Yeah, it was in Hyderabad.
Hyderabad.
Way
So
back
physical,
then.
yeah. Where a kid could walk in
Yes.
and experience,
Yes.
any of these 64 Vedic arts.
Exactly. That's right.
That's just beautiful. What is the role of Amar Chitra Katha in this?
The branding, Amar Chitra Katha is the branding part.
And of course, I'm assuming you'll use,
organization.
those stories and those references along.
Not necessarily. Like I'm not. As I said, it's all open. Like every story of mine, I just research it from somewhere, and it need not have that Amar Chitra Katha. Well, they also never asked me to stick to those stories. It was. I think it's besides the point. I never thought of it. Yeah, it's just the branding, and Rana wanted to do something with them, and then I was just there. I just landed there. I don't know how and why, and I just landed there.
It's a beautiful concept. So kids would like what set up classes and come the way you envision it. I mean, it's tragic that it doesn't exist anymore.
It did happen for a few days, but then because of COVID, it shut down. So the concept was alive. Basically, alive, it was called. So you sit with your teacher or you sit with whoever is the facilitator. Let's not even call a teacher. So we sit together and we do things. So that part is missing in the online platform.
That's wonderful.
We were trying to make up, but then, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a beautiful thing. And I'm looking forward to it being revived at some point in time. But, I want to go back to your personal journey, right? So somewhere you're in between your amazing solo trips and your thriving IT, your career in technology, at some point you choose to become an entrepreneur. So in many ways, I guess it must be evident to everyone who's listening to this that it comes from this deep conviction that you have on children learning these stories and experiencing them and living with them, etc. But having a passion for this, of course, is very different from running an organization. Tell us a little bit about the entrepreneurial journey. When did you decide this is what you wanted to do, and how was the journey?
I never did actually. So it was just one step at a time. I would just say, I'm doing this for 2-3 months and then we'll see. And then I'm again another 2-3 months. And then it's so addictive. Okay, another 2-3 months. And it kept going. So it was not really, it did not sink into me that it's an organization. I have a team. I have over 150 children who are, these are very personalized and customized classes actually. I do have groups of 5s and 10s, but I also do one-on-one, just need basis. So I do have like a sizable chunk now, but still to me, it is just my work with each one of them. And especially after the COVID has started, I see the calling. I am at the point where I have to be in life, and I'm giving that kind of, I wouldn't say help, but they need that shoulder, they need that chat. So I have classes with children where we just talk and everything just comes together. Yeah. So otherwise, I've registered my company. All this is vague, but I've registered my company in the US in 2019. And this is the second year. And before that...
If I may ask, what is Kathavani?
Katha is stories, and Vani is the vibrations, the sounds, the primordial sounds, and all kinds of sounds. So put together. So for me, it is chants and and the stories and the debates, discussions, and whatever else it brings together. So we do exercises like Drona's story where he picks Arjun as his best student. How does he do that? So we all get together with bows and arrows, and I place a artificial tree with a bird on the top, and I ask everybody to just aim at it and just tell me what do you see. So we actually do it with experience as well, experiential learning in the true form. So Kathavani is to begin with in Indian mythology. That's where I've started now, and I want to bring in everything else later. So mythology, folk, and tribal, and anything Indian.
But for the uninitiated, what is this organization? What is the value proposition? If a parent is listening to this right now, what does Kathavani offer them?
So wherever you live, so this company is helping you connect your roots. So that's why I call it the root to your roots, ROUTE, root to your roots. And values. Who doesn't want to imbibe values in the children, specifically in this day and age? Especially also because they have high capabilities. And so I give them stories which have a lot of wonder, a lot of information, and bring it, I contextualize it, and then I give them the tools, like you chant these mantras and you do these meditations, and there's a transformation that just happens, and you notice it. And we are coming up with science through scriptures. I think this is the right time to mention that. So there's an academy of research in Calcutta. Dr. Rajeshwar Mukherjee set it up, and so he looked around and he picked Kathavani for this collaboration. They do a lot of science and scriptures, so physics and Sanskrit juxtaposition rather. So we are trying to get it for children. So I am curating that for the children of all ages. So yeah, we'll be bringing anything about nuclear physics and atoms and atomic energy to, it could be like simple laws of physics. So we'll bring all of that, and we will even show, so Bhagavatam has so many, and so one particular chapter, there's this Devahuti and Kardama who go on a ship, and 2.5 pages have been only describing the kind of flight they were on. So the aviation part of it, and how to build that with the figure. So our scriptures have many of these details, amidst the interesting, fun, naughty stories. But yeah, so we will bring that. So that's the science through scriptures.
And you believe in, when I was just going through, your website and what Kathavani does is I think your offering is more those live storytelling sessions, which I think is very refreshing in a world of content where everyone wants to put out a video on YouTube or an OTT platform. You seem to relish the dynamism associated with the live session, especially with children. Right?
You nailed it.
Why so?
So many people come to me, why don't you put a YouTube video? Can I see your video before I sign up? Sorry. I have absolutely no policy for that. There is another reason as well. I don't want people to, bash me up and start a controversial conversation on how dare you talk about
very relevant
God
fear
like this.
Today. Yeah.
Not that I'm scared of it. I just don't even want to get into it and waste my time. So most of it is misinterpreted, right? You don't understand it. You misinterpret it upon that. So when I talk to children, so I just get their pulse from. So everybody comes with a conditioning. Already you have a set of ideas. So I either dispel them or I'm trying to build on those. If they're not harmful, that's fine. We can go along. I'll play along with them. But if they are harmful, the other day somebody said Christians are more infidel than Hindus. I said, wait a second. Where did you get that from? So there are other things like a random Ahalya story brings in some topic from infidelity, and I have stories to tell you where there's all sorts of things everywhere. But that's so now my focus is on the children. Like these are the impressionable ages, the teens, the pre-teens and teens are my favorite. So the earlier teens, the pre-teens and the early teens.
Why
so
are they
my
your favorite?
11 to they're so interesting. They have so many questions and they have that capacity to absorb. I have 3 to 8s as well who just love all these stories, but there's not that capacity building in them beyond a point. But 11 to 15, oh my God, it's my favorite. I can do anything. We have debates, the discussion. You don't know anything, and to the point also that they say, hey, I know you know this mantra to invoke this, weapon, or to tell it to me. Please tell it to me. So they feel that I just know it and I'm just hiding it from them, kind of a thing. It's fun. There's that innocence. So that's the age where they're moving from innocence to the practicality of the world. I like that, and that's where I want to give them the right direction. Yeah.
Very fertile, combustible minds, isn't it?
True. Very true. Very true.
On a lighter vein, I always wanted to ask someone this question, and I think you're the best candidate.
Go ahead.
I've been an expat. I've lived outside India for a few years, and this sense of culture and the need to belong to your roots becomes automatically heightened when you're staying outside the country for a while, right? And I was like, where I used to live, like Diwali evenings or was just a big deal, and festival that I didn't even celebrate when I was in India became suddenly very, very heightened, right? I think it's mostly a good thing. And of course, sometimes this entire NRI commentary on India and lives in India becomes a nuisance. But this heightened need to connect with your roots, how do you sort of decode it? Where does it come from, and how do you help them?
Right. So first, I want to bash up all the parents for trying to impose things on children, like wear a pattu langa or a pattu sari and sit in this festival. Please, they don't like it. Just get off them. Okay. So for a very crude example, I go to international schools to talk. So MPhil sociology, I specialize in gender. So it gives me the license to go and talk, of course. So I do talk. I give guest lectures in schools. And gender is my favorite topic. And when I step in and these international schools, big shot schools tell me, please teach Indian culture to them. Please teach the children and give them a sense that, you can't wear makeup and mini skirts to the school. I said, okay, you stay out of my classroom now. That's good. That's enough. You are in international schools and you say, put Indian values. So I do not understand that you don't believe in yourself by calling international. So the same thing now, as I said, that's a crude example. Now let's go back. So these children have ever since been raised there. Some of them haven't even been to India. So here, it's my job to introduce them to the culture. Okay. So when you said it's probably good to do all the festivals, for me, it makes no sense if you're just doing it because we are supposed to do it. So who says that? And why would I do that? So I come in where I explain where this whole the festival culture has come up with. Not just the stories, but what is the inherent need? Like in way back, the use of totems and the need for get-togethers and the community living comes. So it's in a way that, but plus, of course, your customs and traditions. So while I give them a pedestal, but also I don't overemphasize them. I just say that this is the relevance. So tomorrow, your daughter or your son, they participate in the festival in spirit. It doesn't matter they wear the dress, they're burning the crackers, they're eating those laddus. No, it's fine. They're in spirit with you. So that's more important for me. So yes, it is very relevant because you now understand why they've got these customs, and we are not stupid people here, right? So this is the centricity. You must have heard this term a lot. So we always feel that it goes both ways. So for parents, Hindu culture is the best, or Indians are the best, and everybody else is. My mother still says that they don't have culture, and these people don't have history. I said, okay, all right. So that's one part of ethnocentricity, and our next generation of Indian diaspora, they're what's in India, and so it's so foolish to follow this thing. So I am breaking that for them. So yes, I decode why we have festivals, why this place is popular, and what's the vibrations when you visit this. So now they look forward. Well, it's not just this serious stuff. I give them all kind of funny things, and I tell them how much the Palace on the Wheels cost when you come to Rajasthan, and so all that sort of thing. So I'm introducing them Okay.
The point that's actually dawning on me, right, and I always wondered about this, is that I think we all intuitively know that there was a lot of knowledge and wisdom that went behind these stories to begin with, thousands of years back, hundreds of years back. Somehow, knowledge transfer has been a problem, and now we have the stories and we don't have the wisdom that they had. So there's a disconnect. So some people say, hey, this story sounds stupid. It's not going to happen. Physics wouldn't allow this to happen. But it's probably a metaphor to something that is deeper. And we don't have that connecting thing to say, right. That's a rendition. And what I love about what you're doing is you are helping people to live in the story without abandoning the search for the wisdom.
Yes, right? While keeping the magic alive. So
exactly.
we give the magic and the wonder alive because why is it not possible? It is possible. It is possible to manifest. It is possible to lift up the hill when your intention is very clear. So your intention is to help at a larger chunk of the society. So this is something they understand very subtly. I don't have to say it. I don't have to preach it. So they get it that I just took the example of Krishna lifting Govardhana. Did it really happen? Was Krishna really true? How can he lift with his little finger? It is possible when you give the narrative that, that angle and that direction, and it is quite possible. And he wanted to save everybody. He just started pulling out the boulders, and then finally he lifted it up, and there was a need for it. At that time, there was a need for it. And so it manifested. So he could manifest that. Why not? It's quite possible. So, keeping those elements alive, I also bring in a lot of logic. So for me, mythology, it's a platform to indulge in ethical dilemmas. So one is these, the points where it's possible, there's a superhero in you, in me, there's divinity in us. So I randomly wrote something on my blog one day. So I just did this building blocks, the bottom-up approach of God. Let's say there's no God, okay? Just there's no God. Some of us became gods, okay? So we settled down after the Stone Age and the pastoral and the agrarian societies. We have a lot of time. You and I just sit under the stars. We are having these big questions of what is creation? How did it happen? And then so on. And then we became God. We realized that we have the potential to create that. And well, why not? It's so simple. A woman creates a baby. So that itself is a good enough example, right? A hen eats some grains and creates an egg. Can you actually simulate it and put it? So things like that. So you just water and then you get sugar cane. So sweet sugar cane. Yeah. So all this is quite possible. Scientifically, how do you explain it is our capacity. So I did that. That's a building blocks. You build from the scratch and you get to that point of becoming the god. So it's quite
amazing. Yeah. I mean, motherhood is the closest divinity thing we've all seen, isn't it?
If you actually see the creation myths, it's all about the description for me. So again, it's not out there anywhere, but to me, it's all that, the space where the woman gives the baby, makes the baby. So the dark waters and the whirling and everything, like you listen to Purusha Sukta, you listen to any of these creation myths, it's so obvious. They're just talking about a woman's reproductive space where she's creating a baby. Of course, I mean, I'm not saying she's the only one. There's that necessary sperm as well, of course. Just giving the context.
Yes. Beautiful. You mentioned in the passing that you specialize in gender when it comes to the lectures you do.
Yes.
Tell us a little more about
that. So I talk about how market popular culture influence us. You're into advertising. I bash them up properly. And especially if it makes a negative impact. So there's a lot of positive impact. Obviously, not just me. Everybody's amazed at the kind of ads India brings. It's beautiful. And some of them just make you cry. I have cried myself. So I bring them perspective. See, they're all living in a bubble, okay? Thanks to globalization and everything else around. So they live in a bubble. And so it's very important for me to tell them that these are all the influences. Starts from your family, your community, and then your the church or the religious and everyone, the market, the popular culture, the pop culture, everything plays on you. And then you come to believe that, oh, I'm cool in doing that. I have had children, mythology, mythology is really how so uncool. I said, okay. And then they turn into, this is the coolest thing ever. So I'll just give an example. Let's just talk about Palace of Illusions, Draupadi's. Beautiful topic, okay? I mean, one of my favorites. And so the children are, they love it if you give them the right kind of perspective. These people built that whole place, the Indra Sabha and the Maya Sabha, with a futuristic technology. So imagine waking up. So Draupadi is obviously the queen of the place. So she wakes up with waterfall and she's dreamt of some waterfall. The whole walls turn into water and there are lilies, which is serving you food and your drinks. And the next day she wakes up with an anti-gravity, the space mood. And everybody is floating around. And then, the whole day goes like that. So these I keep simulating more and more and adding up. Well, depends on you love space, I'll give you space theme. Somebody likes, so it depends on what the children. So I know them well. Before I start anything, I spend 2 or 3 classes with them to understand the child or, the group better. And then, so the ethos that continues. And children participate. And then I say, you tell me, you wake up with what? And then how would, so fill up. So there is creative writing, there is drawing. I ask them to draw extensively. And there are children who are listening to me and then they show me. So they just draw the whole thing very beautifully, all sorts of.
Yeah. Extraordinary. Surya, we usually end the episode by asking our guest, what he or she is watching, reading, listening to, whether it's to do with culture or just generally to have fun. What's been keeping you interested in content?
Okay. Right now, I picked up something called Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton, and so we say gene and environment are interplaying in whatever we do. But Dr. Lipton says neuroplasticity. You do systematic efforts and then you train your mind. Your brain gets trained. So that's something I was just looking at. But hey, I love mythology fictions. It sounds a little silly, but I love the way they're putting creative writing. All the authors and the new age generation. Some of them get in touch with me. There's some guy who's written about Barbarica, and it's nice actually when they come and talk to me, and there's some dilemmas that they ask me to clear, or it's just a nice friendly chat, and I love that. And then I recommend it to others. So yes, I do pick up all the mythology fiction around. Some of them are very silly, but that's fine. It's fun. So
what do you watch when you're absolutely utterly bored with mythology?
Oh yes, that is true. You get to the point, but I can't take the thread off my mind. I love watching that Star Plus Mahabharat, the Krishna part of it. Oh my God, he's something
the new
else.
one or the old one?
The new one, yeah.
The new one. Ah, okay.
Yeah, the lines are amazing. Hey, there's a lot of stereotypical stuff and untrue stuff. I agree with all that. But I just love the way the lines have been written. And oh, come on, they're handsome men. Karna and Krishna. Everybody loves watching them. So that's one thing. I keep watching them. But non-mythology. So I do watch Hans Wilhelm and John Kabat-Zinn and mindfulness and something about meditation, about all those theories. I do watch Sadhguru. I do watch Ravi Shankar. I do watch everything, and it's fun. And yeah.
Are you much of a podcast person? Do you listen to a podcast?
I'll start now. I've watched your previous episode. It sounds really fun, and I should have started. Yeah. My son is 4-year-old too, so I'm hands full with him. So yeah, I would definitely.
I feel you. I feel you there.
Yeah. Not a moment of peace that I could just sit and start watching, right? So hey, yeah. I do watch all sorts of silly stuff and Family Guy, and I like all the murder mysteries, and I think I should do one degree in medicine. I'm so obsessed with it. I watch House MD and all such shows. Yeah.
You're a Grey's Anatomy person.
Not that, but
not really.
Yeah. Murder mysteries, yes. I love murder mysteries. Yeah.
Wonderful. Surya, absolute pleasure in speaking with you. There's so many dimensions to what you do. I wish you all the luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You too.
Thanks. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcasts.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to reach out to me, I am _Karthik. That's Karthik with an H on Twitter. And Filter _Koffee. That's coffee with a K on Instagram.
What if you could relive some of the biggest and most public feuds in Indian corporate history?
Peer back through the window of time to see who among HUL or Nirma stood on top.
Or who was more dominant between Tata Motors and Maruti Suzuki?
Tune in with me, Ambi Parmeshwaran,
And me, Anupam Gupta, on Bank of Baroda presents The Last Brand Standing,
where we talk about two brands vying for the top position.
and what their journeys were,
Every Tuesday on the IVM Podcast app or website.
or wherever you get your podcast from.
सफर, रास्ते, मंजिल और मुकाम अक्सर ये हमसे कुछ कहना चाहते हैं, पर हम हैं कि अपनी रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी में इन्हें सुनने से कतराते हैं। नमस्ते दोस्तों, मेरा नाम है केशव चतुर्वेदी और मैं आपको ले चलूंगा कुछ ऐसे सफर पर जहां आपको एक नया नजरिया मिलेगा सफर और मंजिलों को देखने का। आइए इन किस्से कहानियों में डूब जाएं। हर मंगलवार और शुक्रवार